Hey there, sports fans. How are you doing today? This is our Week 12 Sunday review. Unfortunately, Keith had some issues, so he couldn't make it this week. So you got me flying solo. Hopefully, I can do my best to make sure you guys stay entertained. Um, our first game was at 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock on Sunday was the Texans Miami game. Now, this is a game where I think everybody took Miami to win, and Miami came out and won in pretty good fashion. Game went up being 30-15, but realistically, the game was pretty much a blowout in the first half. Tua got benched later in the early in the second half. He came out. He had 22 for 36, 299 to touchdown. Most of it in the first half. At that point, they just decided it would be best to sit him. Houston was able to muster up a couple points in the second half, but Kyle Allen actually started for Texans this week. They looks like they sat Davis Mills. They're trying to do something a little different, shake things up, and it really didn't make much of a difference. Houston's whole team only rushed for 46 yards. A real dismal game. Hill had a good game. He had 6 of 85. And then Waddle had 5 catches for 85. Neither of them saw the end zone, but at the same time, it was pretty, again, they all had pretty good performances. It was a pretty dominant game Miami's way. Pretty much the landslide expected people to make, people expect them to make of it. Miami's doing pretty well right now. We're later in the season. They're, top playoff contenders right now. With Tua back in the lineup, he's looking really good. He's a potential MVP candidate at this point. Miami's just going to keep rolling. Texans look like they're playing for the first pick in the draft. So we'll see what happens out there. Next game on the slate was Cincinnati, Tennessee. I took Tennessee in this one. Unfortunately, Tennessee really didn't come out the victor. It was a close game. It was a 20-16 was the final in this one. It was kind of a dink and dunk game, back and forth. Derrick Henry, he didn't really rush for a lot of yards this one. I think he had 36 yards, in this game, or 38 yards in this game on 17 carries. But he had a few receptions in this game, which isn't really. Henry isn't known for his receiving game, but he had 3 catches for 78 yards, and he had one he broke great. It was a great play. And he unfortunately, it looked like he was going to break it all the way for a touchdown, and somewhere around I think it was like around the 3-yard line. One of these guys caught up with him, hit him from behind, popped the ball out. He winds up fumbling the ball, but he fumbled it into the end zone, and Burks was able to fall on it, so they got the touchdown score for that, which again was a pretty sloppy play, but it put points on the board for them. But really, they didn't look that great. Tannehill had a mediocre game. Their passing game is definitely missing AJ Brown over there. They're doing their best with the guys they have to try to make something of it. On the other side of the ball, Cincinnati was they came out pretty offensively heavy. They're doing their best they can with Chase out. It looks like he might actually get back in sometime towards the end of the season here. But in the meantime, Higgins looks like a pretty good option. He had 7 catches for $117 and a touchdown. And Burrows just looked kind of. Burrows looked like Joe Burrows. He's kind of, it nothing crazy. It wasn't a blowout game. It wasn't an insane stat line or anything like that. So, it was one of those things where, Tennessee really, I can't say they need every game right now. They're in first in their division. They're pretty comfortably first in their division. So I think at this point in time, it's just one of those things where you don't want to start losing games that you should win. And that's not to say that Cincinnati's a team that Tennessee definitely should have beat, but this is a rematch of the playoffs last year, where Cincinnati came in and Tennessee kind of got handed their lunch late. It's a shame. I was hoping Tennessee would pull this one out, but it is what it is. It's why they play football every Sunday, and we'll see from there. Next game on the slate was Denver and Carolina. This game went. This is a shame. Carolina won this one 23-10. Carolina, you saw Sam Darnold with his first start of the season. he wound up going 11 for 19, 169 and a touchdown. He didn't turn the ball over. He kept it safe. It wasn't a super game for him. You had Foreman out of the backfield. He put up 29 carries. He had a buck 13. And you saw DJ Moore. DJ Moore showed up in this game. He had 4 catches for 103 and a touchdown. Big plays, all big plays from him. He made his presence known. On the other side of the ball, Denver put up 10 points again. Their offense is so struggling. Wilson had 19 for 35, 146 and a touchdown. It didn't really look great. Latavius Murray had on 13 carries put up 92 yards. They released Melvin Gordon a week back, and that looks like Murray's going to get most of the carries from here on out. So this is one of those things where, they're just struggling for some identity with a team that looked so good coming into the season. Offensively, especially for their offense to be probably, I think they've got to be around the bottom, like 2 or 3 scoring offenses in the NFL right now. If they could just get to a point where they could put 20 points on the board, they'd have a really nice record. And I don't know, it's just not clicking over there. Russ doesn't look good. The people around him don't look good. They've been struggling at running back all season. It's been kind of a joke, and it's a shame because it's not really the way you expected. Denver was one of a couple teams that came out, made a bunch of changes in the offseason, some huge, changes, and especially offensively, and you expected just more out of them. Hey, Denver, Vegas, and Indy all, were teams that went out of their way to really fix their offense, increase their offense, and just are letting everybody around them down. So hopefully, they can maybe pull out a few wins and at least finish with semi-reputable record for the season. But it is getting late. It's starting to might be panic button time, over there as far as, they're not, I don't know how they're going to fix the situation. They gave away so many picks that they're pretty committed to Russell, because on top of his 2-year that was left on his contract, they gave him a 5-year extension at the end of that. So they've locked him down for a long time, and they better hopefully, they can get out of this situation or, things start to turn around the other way. But we'll see what happens. It's just a shame that it's going the way it is. The next game on our slate was Chicago and New Jersey. New York Jets. I guess you call them New York. But the Jets, the Jets wound up taking this one pretty convincingly. Jets took this one 31-10. One of the bigger problems with this game, it looked like it ended up being such a landslide. You had Trevor Siemian started in Chicago for Fields. Fields is still a little injured. Siemian was his first start since 2019. So they were pretty, they also came out, and it was just kind of they didn't look good. Nobody really did much on offense at all over there. I think their leading receiver was I can't remember who but he only caught 4 balls. Claypool was second with 2 catches for 50 yards. Stat lines are pretty dismal in this one. On the other hand, on the other side of the ball, the Jets. You had last week. You had the benching of Zach Wilson. Mike White started his first game of the season this year for them and came out and did amazing for his first start. He went 22-28 for 315, 3 touchdowns. Might have been arguably the best quarterback stat line of the week. There's a few other guys who put up some really good numbers. Carr and Lawrence had really good stat lines, also they chose to sit healthy scratch James Robinson in this one, and I know he was upset about it. I know it was kind of a last minute call, but I guess they saw something in this young kid Knight, Zach Knight in the backfield here, and he actually had a really good game. He led the team in rushing. He had 14 carries for 69. He also caught 3 balls for 34 yards, so he went over 100 yards all-purpose. He came out and did his job. Michael Carter really wasn't a factor in this game, but it was it's one of these games where the Jets are still, I don't know what's going on there in the backfield. It's been a jumble since Breece Hall went down. They got to figure out the issue with Robinson because I know he didn't go over there to not suit up and not play. But on the other hand, quarterback situation couldn't have went better for them. Couldn't have been a better call. And this is a situation where if the kid keeps playing this well, it's his first game in the season, and a lot of times when these you make these quarterback changes late in the season. You have an offense that's tailored around a certain quarterback, and you put 11 weeks of tape together with that quarterback. So a lot of teams come in and prepare, even though they know it's going to be a different quarterback. It's a quarterback they only have a few a few small hours of footage on. So they prepare the best they can with the footage they have, and maybe this was that game where they just weren't prepared for the offense they were going to run around him, or potentially he comes out next week and he does the same thing or something similar, and maybe we have a young talent here that might be a good chance to switch out Wilson before you overcommit to him. But either way, good game for the Jets. Keep going. This looks like after last year, all the draft picks. This looks like a good year for you. Sauce Gardner had another great game. Defensively, you guys are really good. So keep up the good work over there in the New York Jets. Next game on the slate was Atlanta and Washington. This one got sideways pretty quick on us. Atlanta wound up losing this one 19-13. It just wasn't really a good game at all. The only positive is we rushed. We had a great rushing game. We rushed for 167 yards on the ground. Algiers had about a little around 50. Patterson around 50. Mariota put up 49. But outside of that, there wasn't really a lot of Atlanta. It's tough. You had Zacchaeus. He caught 5 balls for 91 yards, but with the score total, there wasn't a lot of people putting up touchdowns. For some reason, Atlanta just doesn't. I don't get it. We're still. It's a tough situation because Mariota's playing well enough to where you don't need to pull him because you haven't. Ritter, I don't think is ready to be starting. I don't know if he's NFL ready right this second. I think the time on the bench is probably good for him. But, what are you going to do? And Washington, on the other hand, Washington's, they're winning these games they're not supposed to be. Their record looks pretty good for a team. They're in a tough division, and they really had to step it up if they want a chance at doing anything. That division's, pretty good. Robinson, this rookie, 16 carries, 105. For a guy who didn't come back till early mid-season, from a 2 gunshot wound in the leg from a carjacking, before his rookie, he even got a chance to step on the field as a rookie. The fact that he was able to come back from this injury and play this well is very, very impressive. I got to give him a lot of credit. Other than that, Taylor Heineke, he's doing a good job of, steering the ship, being a game manager. You got your guys making plays. McLaurin's doing this thing. These guys are good for you guys. It's good to see, they're being able to put it together. This isn't, they're doing a lot better than they were. And Chase Young's, coming back. And, so their defense is definitely going to be stepping it up a notch too. So, hopefully Atlanta, we're still fighting Tampa Bay for a division. There's still enough games left where it's still a fight. And we do have a schedule that's more favorable than Tampa Bay does, but we really got to step it up. The only thing that, one of the things that kept us in this is our next game here, and that's Tampa Bay, Cleveland. Tampa Bay actually wound up losing this one in overtime, 23-17. It was a shame, because Tampa Bay, it was a good fight game. Godwin came out, he had 12 catches for $110 and a touchdown. But on the other side of the ball, you had Chubb went for 26 carries, 116 and a touchdown. And you had Amari Cooper catch, 7 for 94. And it was just a tough situation because, they were in a situation where they just couldn't really seem to break away from them. And Myles Garrett had 2 sacks in the game. Very dominant defensive game for Cleveland. Brady came out and, did the Tom Brady thing. Played pretty well. It just, unfortunately, when it came time, we got into overtime. Ball went back and forth a couple times, but it wound up, unfortunately, ending up, with Cleveland being able to score a touchdown towards the end. And, it's just a shame that it went the way it did for, a team that's much more talented than it should be. Chubb, created a little distance between him and Saquon and Henry in this one, yardage-wise. He was the only one out of any of them to have a really good game on the ground. So looks like Chubb's back in the lead for yards, rushing. And, Cleveland's definitely got something going over there. You're going to see this week coming out, Cleveland, we are going to see for the first time. You're going to get to see Deshaun Watson starting next week against his former team, Houston, which is kind of ironic. But we'll see how that plays out. Maybe we get a different look on the team. Maybe we get the same look with just a more talented quarterback. He's definitely an upgrade from Jacoby Brissett. If when he gets on the field, he's able to play the same level he was when he left the field. It has been 2 years since he's taken a tackle or played at game speed. So it'd be pretty interesting to see what happens over there. Next game on the slate was Baltimore-Jacksonville. The Jags won this game by a point. Hell of a game. If you're a Jacksonville fan, tons of promise in this game. You had a really great breakout game by Zay Jones. He went kind of nuts in this one. He had 11 catches for 145. Trevor Lawrence came out, showed some amazing poise at the end of the game. Towards the end 2-minute drill, they were able to really keep themselves in the game, get themselves down the field, able to manage a win. They went for 2 at the end of the game. They could have tied it up. They scored a touchdown, went for 2, take the lead. It was either a win or lose situation, and they were able to score. It looked great. Lawrence again poised. 29 of 37 for 321 and 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He just went, he really went off in this one. Jacksonville on the other side, Lamar was, Baltimore on the other side. Lamar was just, he did his thing. You got a game out of him, but terrible completion percentage in this game. He was 16 for 32, 174 and a touchdown. But he also rushed on 14 carries for 89 yards. So he didn't use his regular targets. Duvernay's, not really much. He's not turned out to be the target they thought he was going to be over there. Mark Andrews was kind of quiet in this one, but Josh Oliver on the other side, tight end, he had 4 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. So it seems like they just got to get him more targets, so he get the ball out of his hands, some more confident hands around him. Because again, he completed 50% completion percentage, and that's just really. It's really bad, for a guy who had started out the season a potential MVP, and in the last 5 or 6 weeks has really fallen out of the conversation completely. But on the other side, again, back to Jacksonville. Thank God, Lawrence did put up the 321 because they also had a dismal running game. They only rushing wise. NTN really didn't do anything. They didn't really have much going on over there. They rushed for a total of 38 yards on the game. And defensively, you had, and I'm going to probably mess this up, it's going to sound terrible, but Forsythe Olakun, he had 18 tackles total. He had 13 solo and 5 assists. The guy really went apeshit over there, so good for him. I mean, the defense was on the field for quite a while, but yeah, very rarely you get a guy putting up 18 tackles in a game. So you got to make sure we make mention of him. Good for him. Congratulations on that. That was the end of our 1 o'clock games. Jacksonville continues to win these games that, they just, I think, again, if you're a Jacksonville fan, next year is going to be exciting because you're also going to have Calvin Ridley on the field, and maybe during free agency you can make some moves and bring in, a steady running game. Or maybe you see better development out of NTN. Again, it is still technically not his rookie year, but he missed his whole rookie season, so this is still his first season on the books. And maybe, you see some progression from him next year, so you can bring in maybe just a backup, fill in there. But in the meantime, and Baltimore's just kind of sliding, all over the place. There's a big question mark as to really what team they are right now, so we'll see what happens. But our 4 o'clock games, first of which was Vegas and Seattle. Vegas actually won this one in overtime, 40-34. Pretty much on the back of Josh Jacobs. I'm going to read his stat line in a second, but he did have a little help. There was a few, Devontae Adams had 7 catches for 74 yards, but he didn't score. There was no end zone there. Seattle came out and played great. Geno Smith had an amazing game. 27 to 37 for 328 with 2 touchdowns, 1 turnover, and then DK caught 11 balls for 90 yards. The rushing game really wasn't there. They didn't have a great rushing game. This wasn't Walker. I don't want to say he took the game off, but he definitely didn't have a lot going for him in this one. And a lot of it has to do with Vegas' defense. They might be a little up and down, but Max Crosby and a couple of these guys over there are really top notch. So, but back to again, this really what was this whole game is Josh Jacobs put up 300 yards total offense. He had on 33 carries, he had 229, and he also had 6 catches for 74 yards. He also wound up having the game-winning touchdown in overtime, which was, I think it was an 80-something yard carry. He just broke and was gone in overtime. If you blink, you missed it because, they were back and forth, and then when he got the ball and he was gone. He had some huge, big plays in this game. Really put up one of the best. This is just outside the top 25 all-time games, and it's one where this is one I try to tell people. If Vegas could balance their offense, they'd be in a really good situation because Jacobs is definitely a guy, and I think this game really proved it, that can be that cowbell running back. You just have to figure out a way to where the balance is between what he can do and what your receiving core can do, and where Derek Carr falls in that. He put up a good stat line. Really, he did well. He didn't turn the ball over too much here. He did have 2 picks, but one of them wasn't really his fault. He was 25 and 36 for 295 and 3 touchdowns. Again, 2 picks, but what are you going to do? It was a great battle game, back and forth. And again, Vegas just kind of came out the winner in overtime on, what was a great play by the guy who pretty much dominated the game. So at least it wasn't one of these, freak plays where you were like, oh, who the hell or what the hell happened. The guy who pretty much dominated the game continued to dominate the game and wound up going home with the win. So, good for you, Vegas. Maybe you should play like this more often, and maybe you'd be in a better situation instead of at the bottom of the league. But that's where you are, so it is what it is. Our next game was a 1-point game as well. We had the Chargers in Arizona, and the Chargers wound up winning this one at the end of the game on a 2-point conversion. You're 25-21 or 25-24. Pretty much a lot like Jacksonville. They wound up getting down, scored right at the end of the game, and were able to. They made the decision to go for 2. They put the game on the line, and they said, "Screw it, we're going to do it." And they were able to nail this one home. There was definitely some good performances in this one. Most of them were on Arizona's side of the ball. And they had nothing to do with Kyler Murray. Connor had 25 carries for $120, and DeAndre Hopkins had 4 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. And Hopkins is just another, still averaging over 20 yards a catch there. He did great. Had a really good game. But a lot of the rest of the team, you saw Hollywood Brown back in this one. He had a couple catches, decent, return. He kind of wanted to ease him back into this game. Arizona, was fairly dominant. Their defense in this one for a long, was able to get to Herbert a little more than I think people would have liked. Eckler had a good stat line game in this one. He caught quite a few balls actually. I think he actually had 11 receptions in this game. He was really wild. I missed his stat line when I was checking it, but at the same time, I like seeing the Chargers win. I like seeing Arizona lose because I'm really not a fan of Kyler Murray. But at the same time, a lot of good talented guys in this game, a lot of good back and forth, and congratulations to the Chargers for pulling this one out. Next game on the slate was our shutout of the week. New Orleans played the 49ers, and the 49ers, though they didn't really do much offensively, had a great defensive game and were able to shut out New Orleans. New Orleans just came out and looked bad. They looked like a lost team. Andy Dalton actually, I think, led the team in rushing. I think he had 48 yards rushing. Kamara was nowhere to be found. The receivers weren't there. Even Olave he couldn't get the ball to him. that Niners defense just kept closing in and closing in and closing in on these guys. The offense, on the other hand, had been really flashy in the last couple weeks. Kind of took a step back this week offensively. Again, only put up 13 points. It was more than enough to win the game, so you can't take that away from them. But it looked a little more settled. Jimmy G was a little more. His stat line was a little more average this week. You didn't see a lot of guys in this game really putting up crazy numbers. There wasn't much to really, again, much to talk about. A couple guys made a couple plays, but there's no real huge plays in this game. No real, nothing that was really out of the normal. It was just kind of a dink and duck game where they stayed in it. It was a wet game. So these guys, it just. I know Elijah Mitchell was in this game. He came out late again. I don't know how serious the injury is. He had just came back a couple weeks ago from an injury. He missed all, the most of the season. Already with. I don't know how long that's going to carry over, or if there is going to be any carryover. So we'll see what happens there. But it was just this game was a kind of an embarrassment for New Orleans. I know Niners are a tough team, great defense, but there's too much talent in New Orleans. No matter who's quarterbacking the ball, there's too much talent on the field for them not even to be able to put up any points at all. It was kind of, again, a little bit of an embarrassment, especially this late in the season, because when teams are getting shut out this late in the season, unless you've been a bottom barrel team all season, it's kind of you kind of scratch your head because you're like, every team that's, been playing all season at this point should be able to put something together, and they just really couldn't. And it makes you wonder, how much of their identity do they really have right now? What kind of identity do they really have right now? It's just again, I don't know. It's embarrassment again, embarrassment. So next game, our last game, 4:00 game, was the Rams versus Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City took this one pretty convincingly. It was 26-10. Again, not a ton of standout play in this game. Defensively, obviously did well. The Rams just don't. The Rams look like a lost team. They made some changes in the offseason. They don't look like the team that won the Super Bowl last year. To their credit, Matt Stafford didn't start this game. He did sit out again. It was which definitely affects their offense. But Cam Akers, is back in this game. And they added Allen Robinson, who just seems to be a non-factor at all. So I don't really know what's going on over there. Kansas City, on the other hand, they played a good game, solid game, average game. Mahomes did, his average thing. He had around 300 yards. I think he had 320. Not a ton of crazy insane stat lines here. Kelsey had a little bit below average game for him. Valdez-Scantling made a couple plays. It was nice to see some of these guys in the lineup here. But again, pretty average game for anybody. No crazy standouts. Kansas City just came out and, it was Kansas City, and the Rams came out and unfortunately were the Rams that they've been all year this year. Their defense is really good. It's very stacked, but it's just not, it's not enough to win games because you have to be able to put points on the board, and they just kind of don't, they're not the team they were last year. So it's a shame. I don't think I've seen a team do this bad after going to a Super Bowl. I know when Carolina went, I know they didn't win, but Carolina the following season after they went, they came out and they were a dumpster fire. And I think this is probably the closest, fall from grace since that Carolina team went. So I hope the Rams may maybe turn around and make a respectable, record out of the season. There's still some games to play, but I don't know. I don't know what to expect from them right now. On the other hand, here we had the 8:00 Sunday game, which is Green Bay and Philly. And this is one where it was a good game. Green Bay came out early, was scoring. They're putting up some points. They're fighting back. It was back and forth. But Green Bay unfortunately lost this one 40-33 late. Rodgers went down. And I think it was late in the third or early in the fourth. And Love came out. He did his best to kind of keep the ship going. Watson had a great game, 4 catches for 110 and a touchdown. The kid looks really good. Young talent. Looks like he's finally starting to work himself into the offense regularly. He can be, might be a reliable target over there, especially going forward. Hurts balled out in this one. He was 16 for 28. He passed for 153 and 2 touchdowns, and then he had 17 carries for 157. He actually rushed for more yards than he passed for, but they're moving the ball. Offensively, outside of him, there wasn't a ton of guys really doing anything but scoring. Not a ton of huge big plays. Mostly, little plays down the field here and there. But they did well. They came out. They played the game pretty well. I don't really know what else to say. That Philly's been doing what Philly does, and there's not really much else you can say about it. They keep winning. They're a team who, even the tough games on their schedule at this point seem winnable. So it doesn't seem like Philly's going to lose too many more games in this regular season. We'll see what happens when they get to the playoffs. They're definitely going to be at the one of the top options, if not the number one bye week team. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. They're going to go from there. But our last game was a Monday night game. It was a Pittsburgh and Indy game. This game was a little bit of. I don't know. It was a shame. You had Pittsburgh won this one 24-17. Great defense. They were able to keep everybody under control. Pittman had a couple of good catches. There's a couple guys over in New England that did okay. Taylor had an alright game. I think he might have had over 100 yards all-purpose. I'm not positive on that, but. Matt Ryan looked mediocre. I think he went for 199 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. It just really wasn't a great game there. Pittsburgh looked They looked like the better team. Still waiting for them to kind of try to work Deontay Johnson into the offense a little more. It looks like they've been going a lot to Pickens. That's not a bad thing, but at the same time, you still got a lot of other talent around there, and you don't want to isolate guys by constantly throwing the ball to one guy. They got Freiermuth over there at tight end. He made some good plays during the game, especially late. Pickett looked good. He came in, he looked solid, he played solid, he looked tough, he stayed in there, he made plays when they needed them. In a game where they didn't have a huge running day out of Najee Harris. It really is important for these guys to come out and really play well. And it just didn't look. Indy's defense really didn't look all that great. They didn't look comfortable on the field playing these guys. And I think it's been the story of, again, Indy's one of those teams that unfortunately on paper at the beginning of the season looked so good. You just really, I was excited to see what these guys were going to be able to do this year. Being a Matt Ryan fan from where he came from, I hated the trade, but I just feel, I was still excited and supported him for, everything he's been for us in Atlanta. And I really expected more. I think the whole NFL is same thing with, Russell Wilson. The thing is, with Russ over in Denver, he's younger, so it's harder to explain what's going on because the decline looks like night and day from where he was, a year or two ago. Where Matt Ryan, he's a little older, so some of this can get blamed on age, but he's a good pocket quarterback, and if you can give him some time to throw and make good decisions, he can make them. He's a talented quarterback. He's never been the same guy he was after the Super Bowl run. The following year there, it's been a slow decline the last couple of years, but I still think he's got more in him than he's been. They've been giving him a chance to really show. So I don't know. I hope for Jeff Saturday and Indy they can get it together. Maybe still have a respectable record in the season, and technically they're still in the hunt offensively for that 7th spot. That 7th spot really opens up a lot of in the hunt teams because it's a different kind of fight now. But either way, that's our Week 12 Sunday review. Check out our Week 13 preview this week, which is going to be the Bills and Buffalo. And in the meantime, have a good one. Thank you guys for watching the videos, and we'll see you later.